Hi, Paul. Hi, Isabelle. So lovely to see you. Thanks so much for joining me and for being part of our next series in discussing the vested model. Now, I know you're both from CBRE, and I appreciate that you are both strong advocates of the vested model. And I wondered if we could start off, Paul, with you. Sort of why vested? Why are you a strong advocate?
Yeah, I think the main reason is for many years we work in, too many more years than I'd care to remember doing what I'm doing. And there's always felt like there was something missing, right? There was always some value left on the table, or there was some opportunity missed in terms of what could have been achieved. And so, from my perspective, Vested sort of joined the dots, and because it wasn't coming from a service provider environment, it was coming from some really rigorous academic research, from some really serious thought leaders. I think the message started to come through. And so for me, it brought together lots of things that I've intrinsically felt in my gut were the right way of doing things, but I've never been able to personally or corporately to get people into that mindset in the past. So it brought a framework to that, which was great.
Absolutely. And Isabelle, your thoughts?
Well, I think so. I've been through one of these processes, and I'm a vested deal architect, and I do really see that like all parties win. It's not only the supplier and the buyer, but also the procurement party in this. We all have a stake, and we all kind of reach our goals because we're actually working towards the same goals together. And we also have clear rules on how to work together, and it's kind of built on trust and transparency and collaboration, which I personally really believe in. And I do also see that for what the kind of deals that we're doing, it's really balancing the risk and rewards, and it focuses on what our customers really want us to focus on, which is proactivity and innovation. And actually the contractual structure is there this time for it.
Absolutely. And do you think, I mean, looking forward, do you think that vested has got a strong role to play in business?
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, it's quite an exciting place to work, right? So you're able to achieve stuff, I think, outside of the constraints of many of the historical commercial contractual constructs that we've had, right? And that's exciting. So, at the end of the day, much building on what Isabelle was saying, right? All of a sudden, we've got a happy ecosystem of suppliers, us as a main provider, customer, employees, because everyone's working in a really positive, collaborative, successful and transformative environment. So, what's not to like about that? And so if it's going to help talent, help customers be happy, keep customers for longer and help achieve big outcomes, then yeah, that's why I think it's important. So yeah.
Agreed. Isabel, I mean, Paul, that makes perfect sense. It is just a total shift from what historically has been the state of play. Contractually, everyone it hasn't always been about a collaborative type environment. It's always potentially sometimes been winners and losers. And with it being the sweet spot, I appreciate that it's taken some time to build momentum to get vested to a place where it is making real change. Isabelle, why do you think we haven't had that momentum when it is something that is really so great for everyone involved?
Well, I think that true change takes time. And it's not just to implement a model. This is the whole way of how we have been taught at school is different. There were rewarding mechanisms within the companies, from a sourcing department, from a commercial department. It's also all different. So we need this need to be embedded at all levels. And it is really we need to change the world with one deal at a time. But it's always when you're dealing with the unknown, it's you're looking for arguments why it doesn't work rather than why is it working. But since it's really building on those collaboration, transparency, and flexibility and trust, these are words that are in a private hat, it's like very easy to understand. But when you put on your business hat, then it gets a little bit more scary. But I do truly believe that the long-lasting benefits will show that this is a great model for formalizing and working in a true partnership in the long run. And it is really a mindset. It's a way of seeing the world through the lens of what's in it for we and not for me.
And very well put. Paul?
Yeah, listen, I thought that was an awesome answer, right? And I think there is a key component of time here. I mean, if you sort of go back 6th century BC, everyone thought the world was flat, right? And it took about 350 years before they got enough evidence to support the fact that the world was round. And I'm not suggesting it take that long, but at the moment, there's a lot of people that are so deeply rooted in the way everything was done before. And it's not just the sort of contract piece itself, it's all of the things that are connected to that, all those different functions and how they define success and how they're judged by their peers and how they're judged by their organizations. And so it's going to take time. And that, I think, if I look back a year ago, we sort of had maybe 1 or 2 vested deals, you know, that were really active. At the moment we've got 9, so in 12 months, you know, there's been an exponential increase. And so I think the more that we see those come through and the more people taste success builds momentum, and then we'll see more exponential increase. And, you know, I'm very confident that will happen just because of the nature of the whole structure and mindset of it.
Yeah, and as you said, Isabelle, it is about changing. It's changing people's mindsets. It's re-educating people, because it's been the same way for so long, and there's been this untrusting environment. So we have got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of pages of contracts to kind of get every single element pinned down, because nobody trusts. Everyone contracts to avoid risk. But I wonder if we're looking at this being, sorry.
No, I was just thinking on one thing, because in a lot of corporations, or like, we are already working in a very good partnerships. But I would say also that we probably have our contract in the drawer. So at the moment when we sign it, we put it there, and then we actually work in a very good way together. And I think what this is all about is also to kind of align the ways that we do work with our clients today. And that's also something that I find very inspiring.
Absolutely. And I suppose it goes back to the olden times where your word was your bond and people trusted what you said. And you're right, the contract was in the door, or there wasn't a contract because it was a handshake. And I wondered if you thought, you know, the pandemic has created for some things, it's created a perfect storm. And I wondered if you thought the way that it's forcing businesses to rethink what they have done, how they have behaved, and what they need to do for the future. Paul, do you think that the pandemic's given us a perfect place to enable better collaboration and enable sort of better trust on all levels?
Yeah, I think in an indirect way, and probably a bit skeptical here, but I think as people have sort of taken a step back and looked at, okay, how do we need to be more agile? Because I think, you know, the whole vested philosophy is significantly more agile and flexible and able to accommodate change than other frameworks that we've worked with, right? So I think there's been a real desire to find that sort of, you know, holy grail. And equally, people are wanting to make sure that their organizations are fit to compete for the future. They want to make sure that they're really after the big strategic outcomes, and they want to make sure that they're lean and cost effective and doing the right things in the right way. So I think when you bring those things together, people were a little bit more open-minded about, okay, well, what we've done to this point has been okay, but is there something different we can do? And so maybe that made them a bit more receptive. But I have to say, you know, it's a big leap of faith. Even if a couple of individuals in an organization have got the appetite, there's a big stretch from there to their organization itself embracing that there's this different way to get to these transformative outcomes. But it is happening. It's just, you know, some calories need to get burnt on those conversations at the beginning.
Great way to put it. And Isabelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think short term we can see that like relationships in no matter what kind of contractual setup that we have gotten stronger during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I do also believe the longing for a long-term solution where also the actual contracts is reflecting this partnership is going to get stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it enables more sort of proactive behaviors rather than reactive behaviors.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we noted in a previous interview that students are better able to understand vested. They understand that sort of trust and that collaboration, where some of the sort of seasoned managers struggle, and it's more than likely because of past behaviors, or they've burnt their fingers, or they've sort of tried and it hasn't worked out. Now, do you think that vested is as much about leadership and having that desire, like you said, Paul, to create a better future, as much as it is about behaviors and helping people along the road? Because it is different. It's very different to a lot of what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fundamentally, the organisations that we've engaged with, I think if the message from leadership is, look, it's okay, right, to explore this different way of doing things, because this is a strategic innovation that is going to produce better results for our organisation, and then that flows down, giving the entire organisation permission to then explore those parameters and boundaries. That's a very successful environment, right? That's a great starting point. If it's more bottom up, right, that's more of a challenge, because every time there's a significant amount of effort that needs to go in every function into sort of getting that sort of momentum and buy-in. So yeah, that conversion, if you like, from a leadership perspective and pushing that message down is really important. And your comment about the students, I think, because it makes such sense, right? Why wouldn't you read it and go, well, yeah, this is obvious. It's based on some research. It's based on science. It makes complete sense. Why wouldn't I do it? They haven't got the sort of years of skepticism, right? So, you need leaders to unblock some of that and say, look, you're not going to get fired because you're coming up with some crazy, the world is not flat philosophy. I've got your back. So let's explore what we can achieve together. And that's what you need.
Absolutely, giving talent and your employees that freedom to explore, but like you say, to have their back, that if things don't go well, we're in it together, we can fix it, because you got this collaboration. Isabelle, your thoughts on that?
I would like to come back to having this private hat on, and the very it's very easy to understand collaboration and transparency and flexibility and trust in the private world, and they haven't been brainwashed for a very, very long time. Yeah. So I think they have a very open mind, and yeah, it's easy to pick up on, because in the end, like, all parties do actually win on this.
Yeah, but I think such an astute point, Isabelle, because if you boil that down, what it comes down to, in my experience, even so many people saying, look, I really get it, this makes total sense, but I'm just not sure that the organization and actually, if you translate that, what that means is I need to feel that I'm not jeopardizing my career by sponsoring this approach, right? That's where it really, really boils down to. And so, the more success that we see out there with vested agreements, the more people are going to be willing to sort of stick their neck out a bit and take that plunge, because it won't be such an unknown. I think that's going to be the fundamental shift we'll see on the seesaw. And I think we're really at that point.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I suppose, talking about the contracts, Isabelle, there's always a contract somewhere, even if it's in a drawer. How difficult is it to include vested in contracts, because it's about behaviors? When things go wrong, that's the first time you call the lawyers and you pull out the contract. But now we're looking at it with collaboration. So how difficult is it to write these sort of the vested model into your contracts?
Well, I think it's actually based on behaviors that we all want. Like, all need to be committed. If you're going into a vested deal all need to be committed on those values. And it is not black and white, which is scary, but I must just also stress that the way that you actually work through your contract in such a like really in-depth discussing it back and forth and having the hat on, of course, as a start, what's in it for me, and then you start to realize you need to put on the hat, what's in it for we, and you explore it from so many different angles. So actually the risks are much lower when you sign a contract, because all the big obstacles you have already ticked off and had a very, very open and transparent and frank discussion with your the one that you're setting up this deal together with. So I do actually see it as much less risk, even though there are some clauses which describes behavioral attitudes.
Yeah, I think it's important post-contracting, right, to sort of put some focus and effort on the maintenance of those values and behaviors and that trust piece, right? That you can't let that spinning plate just slow down, because organizations change, people change, and I think if you don't reinforce the way people need to behave outside of a formal contract, that can undermine the spirit of that contract, be that vested or any contract. And so I do think there's a really important piece around how you maintain the spirit of that agreement throughout the life of the relationship as well. That is a key ingredient to success.
That's very fair. And I suppose, like you were saying earlier, Paul, you've had quite an increase in the volume of contracts, and I wondered what your hopes are for the future. What does vested hold for CBRE?
Well, we'd like to see, you know, a material proportion of our existing business flipped over to vested. And I would say, by the way, I don't think it fits for every single customer and every single context. You know, we've got plenty of customers where it just wouldn't work, you know, because of their culture or their structure or their organization, but there's plenty that it will work for. So we really keen to sort of convert as many of those agreements as we can to vested, because we think that's going to help keep us in that relationship with that customer for a really, really long period of time. And as I said earlier, it's going to be good for talent. It's going to be good for outcomes. And we've been making a significant effort to sort of upskill our organization in terms of vested knowledge and skills and training, and not just in the people that are working on deals or on the accounts, but in the entire wider support system in the organization. So, you know, if you go back and talk to legal, for example, it's really important that you can have the same vernacular and talk the same language and understand what you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, you keep hitting this wall of the traditional outside of the immediate sphere of what you're trying to do on vested. So we've been bringing our whole organization along on that journey, and you know, we've got still lots to do, like most organizations have in this space, but our aim is to sort of create that reinforcing framework across all aspects of the business, so that this just becomes another arm of another choice. That's another day-to-day thing we do. It's not something special, it's just what we do.
Isabelle?
Well, I'm looking forward as well to see an increasing rate of successful vested deals being made. And for us at CBRE, it's be able to bring even greater success to our customers and stakeholders, as well as our own employees. And like going back to the game theory that is kind of basis also, like when we play to win together, our mutual success create more success. So success actually creates success. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, well said.
Absolutely well said. And as you say, the more you can show the world and industry that the earth is not flat, and that there are other options out there, and that it is about a we and not a me, then I'm sure you will have far more onboarded. But thank you both. It's been an absolute pleasure, and well done, and continue to do your amazing work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.